You're listening to the Accounting Down Under podcast with me, your host, Caroline McKenna. This is a podcast about being real, about the highs and lows of life. Whether you're living abroad or you're back home, there's a lesson in every episode. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. Before we get into the podcast episode, guys, I would love if you could please do me a favour and just stop what you're doing right now and subscribe to the podcast, and make sure to give the podcast a rating at the end. It makes such a difference to where my podcast ranks in the charts. So I know so many of you listen and you just don't subscribe. So please, for me, if you wouldn't mind subscribing, and make sure to head over to my website and check out my Sunrise social communities all over the world. So if you're watching my Instagram or TikTok and dream of that life in Australia, you don't have to travel to the other side of the world to enjoy the lifestyle that we live. This podcast is proudly sponsored by Gym Plus Coffee, Ireland's #1 athleisure brand. I have been sponsored by Gym Plus Coffee for the last 4 years, and this is our 6th season of working together. If you're interested in purchasing any of their products, you can use my discount code DOWNUNDER, both online and in store all over the world. Welcome back to another episode of the podcast, guys. One of the solo ones. Today I am going to talk to you about owning your own business. This is something that I have been introduced to over the last 7 months. I recently put up a TikTok talking about my life and how, Instagrammers, influencers, bloggers, whatever you want to call them. I hate being called any of those things. I see myself as a teacher, as an educator, business owner, but we get a bad rep, and people just think that you're sitting at home making videos and all the rest. And I recently put up a TikTok to show what my day actually looks like. A year ago, I definitely would have told you that I just kind of hung around, got up when I wanted to, did my own thing, went for breakfast, had a few coffees and recorded a bit of content and thought of the next thing that I needed to do or whatever. And don't get me wrong, see, the content creating, it takes hours, and anyone that does that full time will understand that that is a full-time job in itself. But what I'm trying to get at is that was a job, and that was enough of a job. And on top of that, I have decided to push boundaries and actually open a business on top of it, a physical business, not an online business, which is what I've been doing for the last 4 years. And I have had my work cut out for me. I have really underestimated just how difficult it is. I would have said my life was pretty stressful beforehand. It was a full-time job doing all of that stuff online. And to add to the mix, I have now got overheads. I have a physical business. I have rent. I have staff. I have all of these things going on the side. And in the TikTok, I say about, why I did this. Why have I opened this up when, let's be realistic, being an online creator, there's good money in it. If you do it well, you can do it really well. And my life was really comfortable, really comfortable. I could travel the world next week. I could just go, do you know what? Actually, tomorrow I'm away. And I could still be generating money from the other side of the world. It is a beautiful life, and it wasn't that anything was coming to an end, because everything, if anything, it's busier than ever. But I always like to see ahead. I like to think, what's social media going to look like in 5 years' time? What is influencing going to look like in 5 years' time? I always like to keep my ducks in a row, and I like to think of the next big thing. But most importantly, overall in that respect, was the loneliness of it, the isolation, working from home on my own, on my phone all day, working on an online business where you have no staff room, where you have no one to share your ideas with, or have someone to have the same goal as you to work towards. It got really isolating, and I felt like I had lost kind of myself in the midst of it, going from being a full-time teacher to a full-time online creator. It was difficult. So I wanted to get back to that. I wanted to get back to teaching, and I wanted to do all of those things. But I did not want to be in the education system anymore. I came home, I tried it, I hated it. I put my hands up to every teacher out there. You're amazing that you still do it. I've done it for 10 years and I don't see a career in that full time. life is not what it used to be like in schools and the education system. Something needs to change where teachers are more supported and they are not undervalued, and they don't feel like teaching as a vocation is seen as selling your soul, because it shouldn't be like that. It should be a vocation, it should be your career, but you should have a life outside of school. And it is very hard to balance that as a teacher when you have so many demands all the time. I always say I don't know how the staff with kids do it, like going home and then having another job on top of that job, because I was constantly overwhelmed. So I did it for 10 years, but I missed the fulfillment of it, and I wanted to open my own business. You know, I think that like in times I can pretty much do anything, and I can, and I know I can, but sometimes I take on too much. And I think now looking back, this was definitely something I always wanted to do, but did I need to do it right now? No, absolutely not. There is so much happening. I'm just about to go to Bali next week for my retreat that I am hosting. And well, it's 2 weeks actually. Then I'm going to New Zealand to travel for a company. So like all of the online stuff is amazing and still very, very good. I haven't given any of those things up, but to do the like business on top of that has been, it's been hard. I recently saw a quote, and I think this will help any business owner, where Elon Musk's ex-wife had said that in order to own a business, you need to be comfortable with the level of stress that would break most people. And when I heard that quote, I was literally like, wow, like that's how I've been feeling this week. There has been obstacles consistently this week where you're putting your head in your hands going, I feel like my world's fallen apart because of a certain thing that's happened in work, or a customer that's unhappy, or a delay in a product, or the service not being what you'd expected, or a staff member not staying to the quality that you'd hoped, or even just a staff member being sick that day and letting you down, which is normal and okay to do, but you just are so used to consistency. And I just think that is such an important quote, that you need to be comfortable at a level of stress that would break most people. And when you get to that level of comfortable stress, you're so used to it and you're so resilient to it that it's just normal day-to-day life. And I think what I take from that is that like you need to give yourself a bit of credit if you do own your own business. It is not as glamorous as what people say. It really is not. I once put up a post online about me lying on a beach in Nice, and I said, you know, this is what I naively thought owning my own business would look like. But in order for me to lie on this bed in Nice, I have had to put out several fires just that morning while waking up on my holidays back home in Ireland from owning my own business. Yeah, it's difficult. It is so difficult, you know, and when you own your own business, you don't make a profit in your first year. You'd be lucky to make a profit in your third or your fifth year. You are constantly fighting for the cause. You do not go into owning your own business to make money, because if you did that, you'd give up very quickly. You go into it because you want to do something that you think no one else is doing, and that you're passionate about it. And that is what I'm doing with my company is, you know, I really wanted to combine mental health and education with primary and secondary teaching. But there are days when I think to myself, is this worth it? Do I just stick to the Instagram? Do I just stick to making a few TikToks a day and having an easy life? But I need to come back to my purpose and my why. And that was to help as many people as possible. But you also have to look after yourself along the way. You need to know when to call things quits. And I'm not talking about calling the business quits. You know, that takes time, and you will not know that in your first year. You might not know in your second year. It could be your third year. But I'm talking about like different projects that you do within the business, whether it's, for me, running a summer scheme or putting on a workshop for transfer test, having day retreats for my County Down Under side of things, alongside all of these other things, still going out and doing school talks. Like, can I do all of these things? You need to decide what works best for you and focus on 3 or 4 rather than trying to do 10 or 12 things and not doing them very well. So it's all trial and error. And there are days where you're going to feel deflated and you're going to think nobody turned up to that, or I put my heart and soul into that and I made a loss. Or you're going to feel like, why am I even doing this? Like, that absolutely busted me. You know, there's been scenarios where customers like have said one or two words in anger, and that could be a reflection on the day that they have had, where they have just used you as the person that they're going to voice all their problems to. And their words can cut deep and they can be so brutal, you know, or they could just be spur of the moment, going to write a review. And then they come back maybe like 24, 48 hours later and they're like, yeah, look, I understand. And these things happen and thanks very much. And, you know, but you've taken the rap for all of their stress that day. And there's times where like I've taken that and I'm going, God, like I am giving my all to this. Like, why is it not enough? And I'll focus on that one person's comment over like all of the beautiful bits of feedback we've got from parents, or the kids that keep coming every week, or, you know, all of these things. And even just navigating staff and like rosters. I've never had to like put staff on a roster. I was my own staff. I was my own team. You know, I worked on my own schedule. And then it would get to the end of a busy week and I'm like, oh my God, I have to pay my staff. Like I forgot to pay them. And even just last week I said to myself, God, like I should have paid you last Friday and it's now the following Friday. I'm so sorry. And you can't just assume that they can afford to live till that next Friday without your pay pack. So there's all of these things that you have to endure, and it can be really, really challenging. And I think, you know, online you see such a glamorous side to owning your own business, and you have to really weigh it up. There's a lot to be said for working for someone else and having that pay pack coming in each week. But the way I look at it is, you know, the person that you're working for is that business owner that is stressing about the next pay pack and may not have work for you next week or any of those things. So everything in life is always going to be a risk, and it's whether you believe in your product and your service and your business enough to fight through it. What I do when I have a stressful day, which to be honest, recently has been 98% of each day. I get to the end of the day and I think, I don't want to do this anymore. I do not want to do this. I want a simple life. And I go to bed and I wake up the next morning. I get up at 5 o'clock every morning. And the reason I do is because I have those 4 hours in the morning to A, put out fires, B, give myself a bit of time to breathe, C, get to the gym, because you best believe there's going to be 10 things that'll go wrong that day that I'll not get to go. And D, just have time to sit and have a cup of coffee. But when I do that in that morning time, it's also a time for me to go to sunrise, even if it's absolutely chucking down outside like it was this morning. There was no sunrise. And just take a deep breath and say, do you know what, Caroline? Just give it your all today again. Yesterday's done. It was a shitty one, but give it another go. Give it another crack today. And then at the end of each day, I'll go to my diary. I have a journal called the 5-Minute Journal. You can get it on Amazon. I think that's where I got it. And I'll just reflect on the day, and it'll be those little things that I've forgotten about that I have to really dig deep, because I'll just be thinking of that one problem that I'll have forgotten about. The kid that came up and gave me a hug, you know, as they were about to run out the door to their mum, as they were saying bye. And, you know, you can hear them talking to their mum saying, you know, did you have a good day today? And they said, yeah, it was amazing. You know, like those little things that we take for granted because we're caught up in the stress and the invoices and the bills and the rates, that you forget those little moments that you're making a difference in someone's life. So if you're feeling that way, if you own your own business, keep persevering, keep knowing that you're not on your own. I think one of the biggest things that's really helped me is aligning with other people that own their own business. And just by chance, I was in the coffee shop one morning and I was literally, it was like a counselling session. I walked in, my head was hanging down. I was in bits and I just thought, this isn't worth it for me. Go back to the online stuff. And there was a girl sitting, and I don't even know, she mentioned something about going away on holidays, and I just said, oh, are you going away on holidays? And just started small chat. And then I realised that she also was a business owner, and we got chatting, and she said, yeah, you know, I own my own education centre. It's a daycare centre for kids, blah, blah, blah. So in the same field of work. But what I loved about her is she never seen me once as competition. She was there to help, and she offered me some advice. She gave me some strategies. You know, she kind of kept me right when I was unsure or uncertain about situations and dealing with staff, dealing with parents. And this was all within a 20-minute conversation. We now meet up once a week and we vent to each other, and I look up to her as my role model. She's 2 years in business. Her name is Lauren. She owns Magic Kingdom in Caswell in County Down. Couldn't recommend her more if you ever want to send your child there. But such an amazing person. And I cannot tell you how having just one person in that field of work makes such a difference. You know, we're meeting up tomorrow morning and I can't wait just to vent her and for her to vent to me and just be like, okay, now let's talk about Mount Everest and let's talk about the wedding you're going to or your wedding anniversary, all of these things. You just need to have people that understand what you're going through. And hopefully if you don't have those people, that this episode relates to you and you understand that like it is so normal to have these feelings and it is so normal to just want to pull the pin, but keep going through it, keep pushing through it, but then also know when to call it a day. If it's been years of torment and pain and stress and debt, you know, don't do it to yourself. Do not do it to yourself because of pride, because of fear of what other people will think. You know, if your business closes down or any of those things, it is not easy. It's not easy to say it didn't work out, but just know that like people really don't care enough. You know, you're really not that important. That's something I've had to realize when I stress about things. Somebody once said to me, Caroline, you're really not that important. And I was like, oh, that kind of hurt a wee bit. And then I was also like, yeah, you're fucking right. I'm really not that important. Like you might be a 5-second conversation in a hairdresser's. Did you hear such and such closed down, or it's not doing as well, or it's not as busy? And then you get on with things. And also if you're a new business and you don't have many customers, remember it takes a long time to build that up. I was in my local cafe not that long ago and it was their 4th birthday and I couldn't believe it had been 4 years because I feel like it has only really just, you know, become the place that I go to and hang out to, and, you know, and it's getting busier and busier and the momentum's building up and it's become a real social thing. And that's taken 4 years for him to build it to what it is now. And we don't see that. We always just look at the end product but don't see all the work that goes in before that. So just know you're doing your best. Reach out to people that are in the same industry. Go to networking events. There's always loads happening in big cities. There's a few I've went to in Belfast. And I remember when I was at that event, I was just like saying, you know, it's really hard and it's this and it's that. And I spoke out in front of a lot of people and I was so nervous about what I'd said. And, you know, I said, you know, and I have 3 staff doing this. And the man stopped me and he said, hold on a wee second. Can we all just take a moment to give this girl a round of applause? Because she just said, you know, within a few months of owning her own business, she has 3 staff. And they all gave me a massive applause. And I was kind of like, is that like, what's going on here? And then I was like, oh, like I have 3 staff. That's pretty cool, you know? So give yourself some credit. You're doing the best you can. It's hard to make it in business. It's hard to make it in a local small town area. It's hard with the cost of living right now to decide whether it's worth it. But remember all the benefits that come with it. Like you are your own boss. You know, you don't have to answer to anyone else. Yes, it comes with the stresses of all the pressures that come with it. But you get to lead your business in the direction you want to. And the final say comes down to you, not to your employees, not to anyone else. It is all your decisions. And it might seem stressful at times, but it means you can create the vision and dream that you'd hoped for. I hope this helps. And thank you for listening to this short little episode. And yeah, I hope your business goes well. I hope to be in the same line of work with you for the next 30, 40 years. Maybe I'll see you at a networking event and we can talk more about our successful businesses. Thanks for today.